Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 horror film Imaginary. The film is directed by Jeff Wadlow and it stars DeWanda Wise, Tegan Burns, Piper Braun and Betty Buckley. Now the film focuses on a young family who is... they've got a stepmother played by DeWanda Wise, Jessica. She's trying very, very hard with the kids, and they decide to move into what was her childhood home in order to try and settle a bit quicker. But once they move in, and the dad buggers off somewhere on a tour or something like that, they notice that the youngest daughter, Alice, starts interacting with a character called Chansey, who she describes as her invisible friend, or imaginary friend, should I say. And she's carrying this teddy bear around with her everywhere that she keeps communicating with. However, it soon turns out that there are some sinister things going on. This Chansey has a deep, dark connection to Jessica when she was a child, and this imaginary friend is anything but friendly and is a very dangerous entity that wants Jessica and her family. Right. What are my thoughts on Imaginary? Well, this, I think, had an interesting premise. You know, the whole demonic toy stroke imaginary friend. You know, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting concept. I remember, I think, when I watched the trailer, it reminded me of like a horror version of Ted sort of thing. But in actual fact, the film is not what I expected it to be at all in regards to a haunted teddy bear sort of thing. And I'm not going to lie, I left this film with more than a tinge of disappointment. Now, I think the production values are fine here. I think the performances are all absolutely fine here, especially from DeWanda Wise and the youngest daughter, played by Piper Braun. You know, they both give really solid performances here, especially with such a young actress as well. And as I say, there's some creative, imaginary ideas going on in this film, but it's an odd film to kind of put into words how it makes you feel when it's finished. It's messy. There are bits that don't make sense, but you're kind of thinking, should it make sense? Did they explain that? Or did they over-explain it? It just felt, probably about halfway through, it just got very, very silly, I think. And I suspect some people will probably prefer the second half to the first half. I preferred the first half to the second half. The first half, the build-up, you know, the hints of things happening, you know, the fact that this imaginary friend was playing this game with her and then the game was getting more sinister. You're just kind of thinking, yeah, it's getting a bit creepier here. And then, you know, the shadows behind characters when you know there's something a little bit more malevolent and demonic almost kind of overseeing all this. And I just thought it was percolating really nicely and tidily, and you know, I mean, some people may argue that it runs a bit slow the first half, and then there's a reveal that takes place when Jessica brings in like a psychologist or psychiatrist to speak to Alice, and then there's a reveal takes place about who and what Chansey is really. And I think from that point on, it kind of, even though there's some pretty cool imagery and some nice effects, from that point on, I think it just kind of turned into, I don't know, it just felt very, very messy to me. And I was struggling to follow it. And it was just lots of chasing about. The elderly neighbour got involved, and it was very predictable, her involvement in the film, because she introduces herself early in the film as being, she used to babysit Jessica, you know, the stepmom. And she just, you know, she's acting a bit weird, a bit creepy, and you're kind of thinking there's something going on there. And how that kind of pays off later in the film is not really as a shock or a surprise. And I think if they'd have played it a bit differently, that could have been a really nice, like, shock or twist to the film. But I think they made it too predictable. that aspect of it. And I think the big problem as well that a lot of people are going to have with this is it's just not scary. I didn't find it scary. I don't remember, even a slight jump here and there or a slight jump scare here and there. And they tried to put some cheap ones in there. There were some bits that threatened to be chilling, like I say, when she's kind of talking in this little demonic voice, this girl. And there's a couple of scenes where you see the teddy bear doing something, like snuggling up to her, and she's having a tea party with a mysterious person. But then who that mysterious person turns out to be, it was like, really? Couldn't you done anything better with that? And it just, I don't know, it's like someone writing a good joke and then the punchline absolutely sucking, not working. And that's kind of how this film feels to me. It's like, 3/4 of the film was written interesting and, it had my attention. And when it got to the punchline, it felt like nothing but disappointments to me. And I do think it's a real shame because there's the bones here of a very fun and interesting film. And there's a bones here of quite a chilling film. I just felt as though they mishandled it, and it's almost like there was some creepy imagery going on in the film, but it was just there just to try and be creepy, and it didn't really make any sense what was going on and what was this imaginary friend, and I couldn't really figure out why it was targeting Alice and then targeting Jessica, and what her father's involvement was, because he's kind of like comatose almost in like a mental hospital or some kind of hospital place. And it just felt like it needed something to tie everything together in a nice little neat bow and present it to the audience member. And it's kind of like, oh, right, I get that now. And it's almost like they left too many threads hanging in the film for it to kind of fully make sense and be fully satisfying. And that's why I remember walking out, I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure I got that. But it's a real shame because there was potential there for a good horror film. I really do think that. I think they've kind of they've misplayed this one or misjudged it. I think there was a much better film they could have done with this premise and idea. But it's not a complete disaster. But don't go into this one expecting a high quality original horror film because you're absolutely not going to get that one. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.